Hello and welcome to the Power of You.
Welcome to, and thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you could make it. I'm Blaine Bartlett.
And I am not. I'm Doland White. It's a pleasure.
See?
It's good to be here. Good to see you. Good to do
We got
this.
us covered. We got us covered here. And I see you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the dress memo.
I did. I'm ready. I got the
Yep.
right accoutrement. I'm ready. Ready to
So,
go.
what are we doing today? You had a particular bug up your bonnet here about this this topic. So I'm going to let you just kind of segue the intro here. I think it's a cool one.
You
It's
said
a very
bonnet. I
cool
heard
one.
the B part, and maybe take pause for a moment. So the one of the things that happens, and having, we both been in this role where we've had teams and organizations where we are considered, top of the pyramid. Those guys, we're the people that set the standard and the strategy and the blah blah blah, and we do everything. What happens, I think, in particular at the beginning of the year, is that there is a reset to expectation, because you, as the leader, you work with your team. Hopefully you've co-created something, which we'll talk about, but hopefully you've co-created something with your team, and everybody, you roll the strategy out. You have a kickoff meeting, you fly everybody in, you've got 100 people in the room, or thousands, depends upon the size of the organization that you are, directors from all over the planet. You say go forth and hence, and it doesn't. Yeah, there's a exactly that sound. That's a good sound. And it doesn't. And having been there more than once in my younger career, without learning until learn the lessons around it. Today we're going to talk about a simple word: progress, and what it means what's going to happen when you roll that out, and but from a mindset perspective, because leaders, as you're listening to this and walking through it, I'm sure a lot of you have rolled out new strategy plans, and you're in, without tying a date to this particular Power of You, but you're 3 weeks or so into a brand new year, and you're looking around going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I
thought they heard me. Yeah, that's good.
They said they had it.
They had, yeah. What's happening?
Right. What's wrong with them?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That infamous question. What is their problem?
What's their?
So today,
I gave them their marching orders.
Yeah. So today, exactly.
They said they understood why it's important.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that's today. That's what we're doing today. And yeah, I did have a bug up my bonnet about this, and part of it is because a client going through that. We had that conversation earlier this week around. So let me tell you what just happened.
Yep.
And
we're 3 weeks in, and the brakes are on. How did that?
Exactly. You thought you were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're not. So here we are.
Here we
go.
Progress, and I love the title that we've got on this one. Progress isn't linear. It's not linear, and the expectation is that it's going to be. Leadership, and this is a whole series. This Power of You is all about how you as a leader show up. And leadership is not necessarily required when things are, when you're in the land of milk and honey. When it's going well, it's kind of like, kumbaya, sing kumbaya, and we'll be off, and just kind of hug each other, and it'll be all good. Now, leadership kicks in when there's a dip. Yeah. That's when you look around and go, what the F?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at here today. And
it'll be a good day.
We start off these things with something that everybody can kind of organize around, which is, where's the pinch? Where's the squeak? Where does it hurt? What's causing that? And these are some of the mistakes that when we get into this phase, this, you kind of, think of a roller coaster, you're looking over the edge going, oh my God, we're going to die, because there's a dip that's coming in here.
Oh, please.
These are some of the mindset and some of the procedural mistakes that leaders will be making in that instance, typically.
Yeah. And I like these. The number, I'll do one, but expecting steady improvement instead of normal variability. And that's the there's always this impression, I think, when there's a graph or a J curve, right, that gets drawn on a page that says, well, here we're going to hit this, we're going to hit an acceleration, and it's going to go like that.
That hockey stick is going to be great.
Oh yeah, and we're going to hit this Fibonacci sequence, and things are going to go. And I've seen pictures of seashells, and I know that Fibonacci exists. We're going to do that, and no, you can expect that.
No. Doesn't. And one of the reason that comes into play here is because, just to your point, most of us are schooled in a model of success that is that linear progression, straight line. The graph goes up, and if you're on that line, it's working. If you fall off that line, you start, getting, okay, don't tell anybody.
Right.
Let's just success becomes punctuated by a question mark, not an exclamation point.
Punctuated is a good term.
Yeah, I used to do a fair amount of not necessarily mountain climbing, but pretty robust hiking, up in the Cascades, here in the Pacific Northwest and whatnot. And I learned real quickly that rest and recovery was actually more important than continual movement. And so we started looking at, where were plateaus, kind of where did the ground level out here, where it catch our breath a little bit. And it allowed us to integrate some things. And it also gave time to just kind of collect our wits about us and look around and go, it's kind of pretty up here. This isn't bad. This isn't bad. Oh, and we've got something else coming up next. But now I feel refreshed. I feel like I've, the dots have gotten connected. I know where my water bottle is now, and that sort of thing. So these plateaus aren't failures. They are an organic way of the system regulating itself, and it's a process of integration.
Yeah, love that statement. Because that is what's going on. To point number 3, right? One of the things that there's a tendency, and I've been younger Doland guilty of this, where there is a feeling, an instinct, an intuition. There's no measure, by the way, because you're probably not measuring at this point,
right?
But you feel like you've fallen off the strategy, and when you've fallen off the strategy, you double down. Well, maybe if I add 6 more people, so I'm going to overcorrect, and I'm going to, and by doing that, when I overcorrect, we're going to pick it up on the other side. We're going to get there, by golly. We're going to double down. So I'm going to overcorrect on that strategy, or I'm going to overcorrect on my team and tell them that one thing that they love to hear, that they're not working hard enough. People love
everybody's replaceable.
Yeah, tell your people that. They'll love it. Or you could just get another one. So, but then you overcorrect on that strategy. When in turn, to your point, and I love that point about the organic nature of it. The organic nature of it is that, well, let's be patient.
Let's be patient.
And where are we in relationship to the path?
And in that sense, it is a relationship question. Yeah. Not relationship to the goal, relationship to the path.
Yeah. That's what I think, that's what gets missed. That's that mistake.
Yep. And for the leader, him or herself, you start feeling uncomfortable. You start feeling like something's off. It's like, it's kind of like, well, God, what am I not doing that I need to be doing? Where did I miss? So the self-recrimination. I've got a good friend, Rhett Power, that has written a book called Head of Mentals. And it's all about that inner conversation that derails us. And I love the title, Head of Mentals. I mean, there's a fundamental thing that happens when this voice kicks in.
It's such a good title.
Leaders that confuse that emotional discomfort, that discord, that self-recriminating examination or judgment with poor leadership. It's not about poor leadership at this point. It's not about that. It's about, staying in, and this kind of goes back to when patience is required. You stay in the stew. You got to stay in the stew, because if you do, you're going to see something begin to emerge. Now,
Yeah.
there's things that you need to do in there, and we're going to talk about those here in just a moment.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We'll lean in
But
on some of that stuff.
And these are just four. And these tend to be the typical ones that show up when things, in the client work that we do, when the clients we're talking about say, yeah,
Right.
these guys just don't get it. Well, let's back that truck up and look at the mistakes that you're thinking of and that you're actually engaged in. These are the ones that show up.
It's one of my favorite statements. They don't get it. Told them what to do.
So how do you know that they don't get it? Well, there's symptoms. And
yeah.
I say, how do you know? You don't really know, but you're making assessments and assumptions here.
Yeah. And as the leader, this is when you're walking through the front door and you can smell these. You can smell the symptoms are there. You can smell them. We talked a little bit about that mistake with overcorrecting in strategy, constant shifts in direction that exhaust the team. One of the symptoms of this going on, and by the way, that constant shift doesn't have to be you as the umpty squat, whatever your title happens to be, CEO, CXO, CFO, CTO. It doesn't have to be you. It could be your VP of finance. It could be your director of technology. It could be your forklift manager out in the shop. So it could be any of those. But when there's a constant shift going on in their direction, then your team is worn out. They have no idea where to go, no idea what to do.
It's kind of like, but you said this and now you're doing that. And and they're close to the work. They really are close to the work. They've got a pretty good view and pretty good grasp on what's kind of going on there.
Right.
Well, most leaders they aren't that close to what's actually transpiring in the system. And so the seagull flies in and poops all over everything. You guys aren't doing it right. Yeah.
Yes.
And it shows up often. I mean, what you get is confusion on the team, but it's also a consequence of you as a manager or you as a leader micromanaging when things don't seem certain. Well, let me just roll up my sleeves and get in there. I'm going to fix this. Damn it! I'll show them what needs to be done.
Yeah, let me show you. Yeah, I remember that. I had a friend that owned a machine shop, and the boss came down one time, hadn't turned a lathe in 20 years, went down to the lathe and promptly threw the blade into his arm. Don't do that. Don't do those kinds of things. So, and then point number 3, because you can't, but declining confidence, right? And initiative from capable people. Some of the key words in here is that generally you'll find that your team is far more capable than you think they are.
Yep.
Which is always surprising. People will rise to the level of expectation. So when you see that declining confidence in your team and their initiative, which means their initiative is use of imagination, initiative is used. There's a lot of stuff that goes into initiative, but when you see that, that's a symptom in your organization that your progress is, you're having a negative impact on the progress. People are capable. When they decline their capability, they're declining to participate.
Yep. That's an important part and an important thing to pay attention to. And this is, from a symptom perspective, you will notice this if you're paying attention. When you know that the people are competent, when you know that they are capable, and they're just not executing from that competent, capable position, there's something going on.
Yeah, they've declined to participate.
Yeah. The fourth symptom that oftentimes will show up, and this one's an interesting one, because we implement whenever we're positioning change in an organization, there's a strategic imperative that is informing that particular change. And that strategic initiative has probably been pretty well vetted before anybody said go. But when you start looking at what's happening 3 weeks in, it's not happening the way we thought it was going to happen. We start questioning the strategy.
Right.
And this kind of goes back to number one here, constant shifts in direction. So these things are all kind of intermingled and interlinked here. We start futzing with the strategy before it really has had a chance to take root and grow. We forget that there's a plateau, an integration that needs to occur. Ideally, what you've done is you've set yourself up to set big goals, which will require big change. And you're going to be moving your people in your organization into areas you've never been before. And that's going to create all kinds of ambiguity, and it's going to create all kinds of uncertainty. The one thing that you can true back to is the strategy that you vetted, given the information you had, the strategy that you vetted, implement it, give it time to unfold. You may need to change tactics. That's a different question entirely. But the strategy probably remains sound.
All right, leaders, that's gold. So the strategies, that's so important though, Blaine. I think that it's easy, and I've been in organizations where I've visually seen this occur, where a strategy got abandoned or softened, which is abandoning the, it's all parlance, it's terminology. Well, maybe we'll do less because it's easier. So the strategy got abandoned. It got softened, which is an abandonment of the original strategy. A lot of times that strategy gets abandoned without the evaluation of the tactics involved.
Yep. Because oftentimes the tactics that are used are the ones that worked before. Oh, which is, it's a natural place to start. Here's what we did before. We're familiar with this. These are tools that we know how to use.
Yeah.
But if it's a pretty good, good size change initiative, you're going to be needing to develop some different skills, some different processes, some different tools, and you need to give that time to unfold and to be discovered. What's needed here that we didn't know about? It's not that the strategy's off. It's that the tactics and the tools that we're using to implement need to be retrofitted or brought in completely new.
Yeah. Very good. Which hooks into Mr. Clear.
I love Jimmy Clear.
Yeah. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And systems, we're not talking about, by the way, kids, we're not talking about spreadsheets. We're not talking about Trello boards. We're talking about much more. And we'll hit the number one system, I think, on the next slide, which is the definition of leadership. But
there you go.
That's really important. And by the way, if you haven't read Mr. Clear's stuff, go check it out. It's good stuff.
Atomic Habits is a great book.
Small.
Pick that one up.
Few people bought it. Small.
Just small book. Yeah, international bestseller, millions of copies sold. It's put yourself in that minority of 1 million readers.
Yeah, there you go. Get it done. Get it done. Leadership. Do leadership.
Leadership. Influencing others in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. And we got 4 basic pieces there. Influencing, which is not command and control. This is about your state of being, how you show up. It's kind of a movement you're causing in the system before you've ever opened your mouth. You walk in the door, people start running to the wood piles based on how you're showing up. Okay. There's an energetic body around who you are that actually gets in the room before you. There's a story about who you are that gets in the room before you. That energetic body and that story are components of influence. So most leaders are not particularly aware of what that is for them. And the overcompensation is command and control. Yeah. They don't rely on their presence as a mechanism by which they cause movement. So that influencing piece is either invitational or it's standoffish. So there's an interesting push me, pull me dynamic in place here, which influences, choice of words here, influences how you actually get people to engage with you. Co-creation. This idea that I have, this change that I want to make happen, it's in my head. I understand why it's important to me. They need to get why it's important, not to me. They need to get why it's important to them. That's the co-creation. Ownership transfers. It's now not just my idea. Now they've seen what's important in it for themselves, and it's now their idea as well. Then we've got a question about how do we execute, and that's the coordinated movement piece. We will, if we're going into unknown territory, we are guaranteed to be stepping on each other's toes, guaranteed to have conflict. And how a leader actually facilitates the emergence of conflict and the use of conflict is really important. That's coordinated movement isn't singing kumbaya around a campfire. That's not what we're looking at here. We're looking about how do you do this dance with unfamiliar music, knowing that you're going to step on each other's toes and do it in a way that you don't, end up executing each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of this is in service of something that we call a worthy ideal. Earl Nightingale years ago was asked, how do you define success? And he said, it's simple. It's the the continual pursuit of a worthy ideal. And so we've basically lifted that from Earl and said, okay, that's what life is about. Ultimately, the pursuit of a worthy ideal. Worthy ideal. It's a goal that is worthy of who we are. It's a goal that's worthy of who we are in our best self. And that is our best organization. So that worthy ideal, pass this baton over to you, sir.
Well, it's funny because you guys can read the slide, but doing what we do, Blaine and I do this all the time, but staying in the study. I was reading, Blaine, I was reading Drucker's 5 questions.
Yep.
And I came across a statement, and it is a mission. In this case, we're talking about worthy ideal, not mission. Cannot be impersonal. It has to have deep meaning, be something you believe in, something you know is right. A fundamental responsibility of leadership is to make sure that everyone knows the mission, understands it, and lives it. And if we flip that into the conversation around worthy ideal, the last 2-3 words are what caught my eye, which is, and lives it.
And lives it.
A worthy ideal is what inspires us. It is not what we're told. A mission is a component of it, but the worthy ideal is what matters. It says it is the answer to what matters. And what matters not only matters to the organization, but matters to that individual. And you, as the leader, you're on the hook to understand that. You cannot tell that person what matters to them. If you do, you will disassociate them from the outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now it's an imposition, not an invitation.
Yeah. That you will hear them say, oh yeah, watch this.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Watch me.
This is what it looks like when it goes off the rails.
Right. Right. So you have that. There is a methodology out there called the 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is a Covey methodology. Jim Huling wrote part of it, so I'll send you a note just to remind you I gave you kudos. I'm still not going to send you a check. But in that discipline, it talks about goal setting, which is I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this from here X to Y by Z by this point in time. That worthy ideal is the end of the sentence that is not in the discipline. Jim and I've talked about that. That says what is worthy about that. For the sake of what? And that's that. And if leaders, if you haven't identified that, some of this conversation as we talk about progress is going to make a lot of sense to you.
Perfect. So leadership reframe, and when we're talking about leadership reframe, most people think about leadership through the lens of historical ways that leaders have shown up. Command and control, take charge, I'm in front of it, they must follow me, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's all in service of taking the hill. Yeah. I mean, I'm using a lot of military metaphors here because that's where a lot of leadership models are actually born out of. We're not talking about taking a hill here.
No.
Progress is not a straight line. It's a fluctuating cycle of effort. It's a fluctuating cycle of friction, of learning, and integration. It's a fluctuating cycle, and it can, it's always in flux. It's not a straight line.
Yeah.
And when we hit that plateau, we call it, if you're not paying attention, you're going to call it, we've stalled here. Actually, it's a plateau. Think of that mountain, hiking analogy here. It's a period of consolidation, recalibration, and actually alignment. And those are three components that take place in that plateauing cycle or phase of the cycle.
Yeah.
Skill consolidation, skill identification. What do we need to use? What do we need to learn? What do we need to kind of modify? Skill consolidation. Identity recalibration. Whenever you're putting change in place, what's disrupted are relationships. My relationship with, fill in the blanks, how I used to work, my relationship with, whatever's being moved around, that relational dynamic has shifted. So when relationship dynamics are called into question, identity, who am I and where do I belong in this new configuration comes into play. And until people get their heads around that, they're kind of paralyzed to a significant degree. And this is where you see resistance showing up.
Yeah.
Square peg, round hole, trying to get people to behave as if this new relationship is the same as the old relationship. It's not. I mean, I ran into this writ very large when we were involved with a consulting project with an SAP rollout. And just kind of,
my whole stomach clenched when you said SAP. But anyway,
and if you want more information about that, ping us. We'll tell you.
Yeah. But before we go to the next slide, though, one thing I would love to just, if you wouldn't mind, just take a minute. One thing you said, I don't want to lose on this slide, and maybe you could talk about it for a second. In that sense, it's a fluctuating cycle of effort, friction. That word friction.
Yeah.
And the leader's responsibility around friction. I would love to just take a moment and talk about friction.
Friction, another way of describing friction is conflict. There's heat, there's stuff that's going on. Basically, when you rub your hands together, you start to feel heat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, friction, it's impossible to move anything in this world that we actually talk about without friction being involved. If I want to walk across the room, I have to have friction between my shoe and the carpet or the floor that I'm walking on. If it's a sheet of ice and I'm not wearing the right kind of shoes that allow for grip, another word for that is friction, I'm going to be sprawled out like Bambi on ice.
Yeah.
So friction is absolutely crucial. One of the things that people don't recognize about friction is, number one, it does cause heat. Heat is a cleansing mechanism. So enough heat, regulated heat, will begin to clean things out that don't belong any longer. Also, heat will generate light. And it's an illuminating thing. It's kind of like, aha, God, I didn't know that. So in the heat of the argument, light can emerge that illuminates a different path, a different possibility. Most leaders absolutely detest conflict / friction. They think it's an indication that something's wrong. It's actually an indication that people are engaged. Now, you want to be able to learn how to manage it well, how to actually leverage that. You don't want to have an on-off switch where it just becomes a blast furnace and everything gets cooked. What's the rheostat? How do you dial it forward? How do you dial it back? That sort of thing. And you want to train your people in actually using that metaphor. I'm going to have an argument with you right now, and here's my intent.
Right.
Sort of a thing. Yeah. And so that what goes to that third bullet point there, system alignment is catching up to the intention. System alignment occurs when friction has allowed things to bake off that don't need to be there, and enough light has been illuminated that you can now see possibilities that you didn't see before. That, and it's all in service of that worthy ideal. You keep that in front of your people. That's the intention.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the real question isn't, why isn't this working? The real question is, what is this phase asking me and us as a team to strengthen? Okay, that's what it's really asking for.
Yeah, love that, and thanks for taking a minute to do that. It's that conversation that leaders get lost around friction all the time because there's this illusion. One of the 5 rules, by the way, 5 lies, I think, is that we're all here to be right.
Yeah. No, we're not.
One of the things that we create other than movement is friction. So,
yep.
Yes, the leadership reframe, leadership mindset. So when so we talked about kind of reframing the thinking, but one of the things is your mindset is what do you expect? Where do you need to be when you are leading a team into change and leading them into the change? And one of the very first ones is expect resistance when growth is real.
Yeah. We
don't like to grow. I had a conversation with a client this morning, Blaine, around doing things different. Is like it's easier to put on that warm, snuggly sweater that I really like that sweater. And if I do that, then I don't know that sweater, the one sweater you're asking me to wear is going to be nice. I expect resistance when growth is not real. We're asking for change. So anticipate a resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, relationships are called into question when change occurs. So people resist that. They resist that. And you end up, if you're working this well, you end up measuring progress by what are people learning in service of growing, not what, what results are being produced right now in this snapshot in time, because the learning will facilitate greater movement down the road.
Yeah.
That's what you want to be organizing around. Now, it's not to say that the outcomes aren't important. The results that you have aren't important. They are. But that's not the primary focus here when you're really looking at the full intent of a high quality goal, which is to grow yourself, grow your people, and grow your organization. The outcome is frosting on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that statement because a lot of times I think leaders, there's a tendency, and we're taught to hit the number. If you're a salesperson, I wonder how many times a week you say, where are you on how you hear, where are you on your numbers?
Yep.
Where are we on our profit? If you're a CFO, how are we doing on profit or net margin? If you're a technology guy, how are we on? There's a number, there's an outcome that you're moving for. And we tend to focus our energy because attention goes where there's something about that.
Energy follows attention.
Something about that. So when you're focused on that outcome, we lose track of the progress that we're learning. Does it mean you measure one exclusively from the other? But you'll find when you measure those, there's a very close dance between those two.
Yeah. A great example of that. Yeah. And it is. There's this wonderful little symbiosis that takes place. If you're focusing too much on the outcome, this is because I was working with a client last week where they were actually increasing revenue and they were hitting their revenue target. But what was interesting was, and they'd taken their ball off this, the net margin was beginning to shrink.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And now they were, just barely profitable, although they had a multiple increase in their revenue. So what they were doing was not learning something new about how to do things. They were just doing more harder. They were doing what they'd always been doing, just, throwing more stuff at it. And it was costing them more. Let's put more people on this. We're going to, and the fixed costs got out of control. The variable costs weren't being, monitored well. And so they hadn't really learned how to be a profitable company at this new level. They had learned how to be a profitable company at this level. So what's the learning gap? They weren't paying attention to learning. What needs to be learned here?
Yeah. Love. That's such a good example. And then, of course, point number 3, I stay steady when others get anxious. And notice, leaders, as I was glancing at this slide, one of the things too is this says I in front of it because we're talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I stay steady when others get anxious. One of the challenges I think in leadership, and I faced it when you're in a leadership position and you're rolling out change or rolling out strategy, there's a nervousness, there's an anxiousness that comes along with it. That's generally associated with fear. There is a little bit of terror behind things, that there's a fear behind this is new. I've not been here before. That's what change is all about. You're doing things you've not done before. That's why it's called change. And one of the important things is that with your team is that you remain steady. we talked about that. You touched on that, Blaine, a couple of slides back. We're talking about focusing a change to the strategy rather than evaluation of the tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So when your team gets wound up in that, you stay steady. You stay steady in the strategy, right? You stay steady and you focus on that. You focus on, I am steady. I am that rock. I am the cornerstone. And it doesn't mean you are not vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you're not sensitive. It doesn't not mean that you're not empathetic. It means that you are steady. You remain steady and committed.
Yep. That's that influencing piece that we're talking about as a leader.
That is that.
You influence through your energy. And if you enter an area of uncertainty with a fair degree of equanimity, where, it's kind of like you're communicating something. You're communicating confidence, you're communicating, you can trust me, you're communicating, a whole bunch of things get communicated. When you enter it with your hair on fire, with volatility, people run to the wood piles. That is not an invitational positioning. It's a duck and cover, sort of a dynamic that comes into play here.
Yeah.
From a mindset perspective, leaders that come into the room with their hair on fire are always going to be fixated on the result. It's not the result that they want right now. So the mindset shift is you begin to really pay attention to, do I trust the process to deliver what we've said that we were going to deliver?
Yeah.
And you do it in a way without disconnecting from the result. You keep that worthy ideal in front of people, but the focus, the energetic focus, is on how are we doing what we're doing? How are we doing what we're doing here? What do we need to learn? So that dynamic becomes really important, and it's a process question.
Yeah, very, very much so. And it all hinges, and there's a lot of other mindset components, but another one is I lead through ambiguity, not around it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a rule, and we talk about this all the time, about clarity creates confidence. So I lead through ambiguity. I don't dance around ambiguity. I lead through ambiguity. We focus on clarity. We focus on context. We focus on trust.
Yeah, our whole mastermind program that you and I do, it's a year-long mastermind deep dive into these questions. When you're looking at ambiguity, focusing on clarity is not a focus on the how. It's a focus on for the sake of what.
Yes.
And the context generates meaning for people. We are meaning-making machines, and people will make meaning up. And if you're not in front of that meaning-making process, it's going to eat you up. It's going to chew you. Yeah, because all of a sudden you've got people running all over the place.
Oh yeah, you danced around it.
Yep. So how do you integrate that mindset with your team? That's because you're not going to do this by yourself. Yeah. I think most of you are aware of that. Most of us are aware of that. Results are never produced by one person alone. I mean, even as I walk across this room, I may think that I'm doing it all by myself. Nah, not really. Yeah, gravity's in play. The manufacturer of my slippers. I mean, all of that comes into play here. So we want to be able to, with our teams, this is, integration. This is that plateauing, kind of, these are the moments where we actually these are teaching moments for the team as you develop it. Normalizing the dips as part of a meaningful progress. So again, we kind of go back to, if your hair's on fire, it's hard to normalize anything. Okay. So if you come in with kind of this level set, this isn't going as well as we'd like in this area. What do we need to take a look at here? So we normalize this dip as part of meaningful progress. What haven't we been noticing? So when these dips occur, you normalize it as a teaching area, as a developmental question, not as a shaming or blaming opportunity. That big distinction there that begins to occur when you begin to integrate these mindset components.
Yeah, well, I love that. This is I'll get in at the very end, before we leave this slide, I have a hint for this slide, but we'll do it at the very end. But
okay,
communicate. but communicate clearly during plateaus instead of going silent. So one of the things that we as leaders, and you said this earlier on we talk about this on many power reviews, which is notice what you're noticing. When you notice that you're in a plateau, leverage the plateau and communicate clearly during the plateau. Hey, we're in a plateau. Let's take a break, catch your breath. Sending pizzas to everybody's houses. Enjoy yourselves. Hope you all like pepperoni. Rather than allowing the team, which I used to love to do, I used to send Domino's coupons to my team all the time. Much easier. But communicate clearly during that plateau. It's that opportunity to engage with the team. This is where we are. And it's a component of the path. It's a part of the dips and valleys and the plateaus and the peaks, and all of those things are going to go on. So make sure you're having conversations with the team so they know we're at a plateau, and that is okay.
Yeah. Because that dip is, and you kind of alluded to this, that dip is part of the path. You would not be in that dip in the way that it's being demonstrated unless you are on the path to where it was that you said you wanted to go. That dip is integral to the path, because now it's a learning opportunity here. What do we need to take on? What do we need to jettison? What do we need to do differently? That sort of a thing.
Right.
So you're going to get your people involved with that. So the way you integrate mindset with your team in this particular case is you trust that they know what they're doing. They are close to the work. They know what the dynamics are here. So as a leader, what you do is you protect their autonomy and appropriate quote. I'm going to put air quotes around appropriate here. Appropriate agency. They get to make decisions.
Yeah.
Now the caveat is in service of what? This is why you want to keep in front, and this is the key piece here. Keep in front of them the worthy ideal. For the sake of what are we doing this? So while you protect autonomy and appropriate agency while reinforcing direction. Here's where we're headed, guys. Here's what we're looking to make happen. That sort of stuff. I trust you guys to do it. I trust you to figure this out. Come to me if you need resources that we haven't allocated already. That's the appropriate agency question. So you're not out there having people busting the budget. That's that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's the no good, no bueno.
No bueno.
But it's interesting you talk about, because when you're kind of what evolves out of that is separating performance feedback from emotional reassurance. There's a tendency to, as leaders, I think sometimes to get trapped into attaboys and kudos.
Yep.
And attaboys and kudos, they're important. They are important. They play a role in your organization. That's emotional reassurance. Separate those two things. Performance feedback. Where are we? What am I really reinforcing? How am I protecting your autonomy? How am I communicating with you? What does meaningful progress really look like? Separate performance feedback, which is where are we? And that's a radical candor moment. Performance feedback is radical candor.
Yep.
Emotional reassurance is important. That is that attaboy, that is that kudo. And the great thing about emotional reassurance is it's a really wide lake, but it's very shallow.
Yeah.
You could fish that out in a day because there's no depth.
And it's crucial.
It's extremely important. Performance feedback, that is that smaller lake, deep.
Yep. And what's interesting, I love that metaphor. Yeah, it's I think really useful, because when we're looking deep, we start. I mean, I'm a fly fisherman. I mean, I love to fly fish. I love to fish anyway. Salmon fishing up in Alaska. I've done a ton of that with my son. And if you start paying attention, it's not the bait you're using. It's not the fly that you're using. You start noticing patterns. The entire universe works in patterned ways.
Yeah.
And if you take a snapshot in time and go, well, that is what reality is, you're missing the pattern. The pattern informs what reality is. So when you start, working with patterns, where have we seen this before? How has this shown up? Names and faces have changed to protect the innocent, but it looks kind of like what went on over there. There's a pattern that's beginning to reappear here.
Yeah.
El Nino, La Nina. I mean, that's a pattern. What do we need to pay attention to with that?
Right.
That's what leaders actually can encourage their teams to pay attention to, because oftentimes, we're so close to the work, we don't see the pattern. We just see the moment.
Yeah. That's that. What's that old acronym we talk about every now and then? It's hard to read the label from inside the jar.
Yep.
Pay attention to the patterns. So before we leave this slide, leaders, what I was going to say was grab a copy of the slide, do a screenshot on this slide. When you are going to, we talked about your mindset, but when you are going to go into your meeting with your team for a strategy conversation or subsequent conversations, start with these points. Just test it, try it. Integrate these points into your conversation with your team, because you're looking at how do I integrate the mindset in with my team so that we can move forward in a confident manner. So you're going to normalize dips. You're going to communicate clearly. You're going to protect their autonomy. You're going to separate feedback from reassurance, and you're going to help them see the patterns, which gets them to notice what they're noticing.
Spot on.
And use this, grab this. These tools aren't for us. We get to do this stuff all the time with people. Take it. Go try it. And then send Blaine an email if it didn't work. There you go.
The leadership mindset. Here's a kind of a graphic of how this dip works. And I love this. I mean, you developed this, and I want to listen to you riff on this. I think it's really kind of cool. And I'm going to pull a full slide up here.
Yeah, pull the full slide up. There's a lot of stuff on this slide. So, when we think about, when you're rolling change out, and harkening back to the beginning of today's Power Review, this is the perfect time to be talking about it. We're in a new year for a lot of companies. We're rolling out new change, new strategies, new ideas, trying to do new stuff. And at the very beginning of it, there is uncertainty, and everybody has agreed that there's uncertainty. And as the leader, the green line, you start to diverge from your team. The very, very first thing that happens with your team, if you have not done some of the things that we talk about, is there's confusion. The team they don't have clarity. They're not completely confident on what you've asked them to do. There's a lot of head shaking that went on inside of the organization, but there's not in commitment, but they're still confused on where they're going. And when that occurs, it's in our natural nature to become frustrated, because we are capable beings. When I was going through my engineering exams, I was thinking about this when I put this together. Going through my engineering exams, I used to get just completely pissed off that I had to take a test. It frustrated me to no end that I had to pass this test for them to tell me I knew what I was doing. So the frustration occurs because we're capable. When frustration occurs, anxiety happens, and that's a natural tendency. And anxiety is hooked to fear. I said that earlier. Fear becomes a component of anxiety. Anxiety means I'm fearful of something occurring. And generally, when we're in a state of anxiety, we're stressed, burnout occurs. But when we have a fear of something occurring, it's because we're thinking in a punitive manner. If I don't get this right, I'm going to fail, or I'm going to get fired. Notice as you get, and then resistance occurs. Because I'm in anxiety, I'm going to push back on your ass, because that's a technical term. I'm going to push back on you because this should have been, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to take a safe role, and I'm going to step back. And notice the gap between where that curve has gone and where the leader thinks we are. The leader is anticipating that there would be a dip in productivity or a dip in outcome. But notice there's a bigger gap. So there's a transition that has to occur there. And as the leader, you are the person that steps in and leads through this transition. This is the mindset that we talked about on that leadership mindset and the reframe slide, that leads people back from resistance into the transition zone of ambivalence, moving back into clarity, moving back into relief. Relief is that, oh, okay, we are on the right path. I don't need to be quite as anxious. I can go home and pet my dog. We're in a better shot. Then if I'm in a relief stage, I can adopt the idea. That committed decision that I made becomes part of who I am, because I now am aligned to my for the sake of what? It's now a component of my worthy ideal. And I move from uncertainty to commitment. And commitment means we are fully aligned. There's a gap between where the leader is and where commitment is in this particular graphic for other reasons. But commitment is I'm now fully aligned, and then it becomes sustainable success. So when you grab this slide, think of this slide as you're implementing plans and strategies with your teams, overlay this on where you are. And by the way, you're going to be in all of those places at the same time.
Yep. Yep. And that's why, as we were talking right at the very beginning, leadership is required at that transition phase. Now, management, there's a distinction between leadership and management.
Yes, quite so.
Leadership is about causing movement. More importantly, leadership is about introducing possibility into people's minds consistently in a way that it begins to transition into probability. And then when it's seen as a probability, people have started to buy into it. They've adopted, and now it can become a reality. You're not going to, the way to yes is always through maybe. And that's what you're trying to navigate, is that move through maybe, or that move into maybe.
Yeah.
No. Maybe. Huh. Okay.
Okay. Maybe you're not crazy. Maybe. No, you are. Okay.
No, you are, but we're going to run with you anyway.
Exactly. I'm going to go with you anyway. You seem to know where you're going.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that's the reason I don't know. I get hung up on charts, being an engineer by trade. I like things that kind of say, look, think about this from your organization perspective. But one key little tip, I'll say it one more time. Your organization will be in all of those places at the same time.
Yep.
So your role as the leader is to understand where, at which point because your leadership changes. It's not congruent all the time. Your leadership changes based on who you're talking to and where you are. So be aware of this so that you know how to be effective, a fully empowered leader. Be aware of where you are. If you want to know how to do that, talk to Blaine and I. We can tell you how to do that. So there you go. Another shameless plug. So
it's another shameless one. So here's some just generic governing behaviors as you start looking at how you actually facilitate this movement over time. Don't reclaim decisions when progress slows down. You've given the ball away. Let them run with it. Okay. If they fumble, great, they fumble. If they get shut down before they cross the goal line, fine, that's okay. Don't take the decision away. Just back it up a little bit. Okay, what do we need to do now? Yeah, let's huddle up. And all of that stuff kind of comes into play, knowing that you're going to be moving into areas that you've never been before. So actually being able to name uncertainty without creating alarm. Guys, we look like we've hit a brick wall here. I'm not sure what to do next. And I know that we're going to get there. So let's get our heads together and see what we can do about this. Now, you do that from a level playing, or from a sense of equanimity. It's kind of like nobody's birthday got taken away. Things have just stopped. We're at a plateau here. Let's take a deep breath. Get the water bottles out. Let's have a drink and see what happens here. And Dolan's going to send you some pizza, and then we'll talk about it.
We could. That was my favorite thing to do. And then honor the learning. One of the things I always love and still love doing is when you're working with your teams, review what we've learned. Because we've learned things. And the things that we learned, there's only 3 styles to learn: what we're going to do less of, what we're going to keep doing, and what we're going to do more of. So honor what we've learned. And when you do that, that gives you that opportunity to govern that behavior so that you're not saying we're stalled, we're all going to die, we're going to fall off the cliff. It's an acknowledgement. Hey, we learned some stuff. Here's some cool things we learned not to do. Here's some cool things. Now, let's talk about what it is that we need to co-create to move forward. What else can we learn? What things can we do? And then last but not least, review inputs. Reviewing the inputs before changing goals. So well, I don't know how many times were you in a meeting where you walked in the door and sat down and the leader sat down and went, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
What? I just spent the last 3 days putting this report together. What do you mean we're not doing that?
Yeah, exactly. So all that work is meaningless? Okay. Guess what happens next time you ask me for a report? So,
yeah,
but review the inputs.
And this kind of goes full circle back to, when it's kind of going off the rails, or when it's kind of slowed down, or it's even seems like it's kind of a complete stop. It's not a question about the strategy. It's a question about what tactics are we using, which are the inputs and the behaviors that are being utilized to produce strategic outcomes.
Well said.
So we want to review those, in this new world that we find ourselves in. Are these working or not? And that's the key question. Not are these good or bad, right or wrong. Are they working or not working?
Thank you for touching on that. There is no good or bad. Working or not working. Why it matters. We'll just go through quickly through this.
Yep.
Leaders panic, break trust. Hair's on fire. Hair's on fire. We're all going to die. Everybody die. We're going to crash into the rocks. Teams, that used to be my favorite comment with my team. Look, we can't crash this thing into the rocks. Let's just try it. Yeah, okay. Teams mirror the leader's emotional regulation. Bartlett's first law of leadership. People
give you what they perceive you're willing to settle for. They never give you what you ask for. And if your hair's on fire, you're going to get stuff that's commensurate with your hair being on fire.
You're going to get gasoline. They're going to give you gasoline. Yeah. Consistency builds confidence. Yeah, exactly. Consistency builds confidence faster than intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, God, coming in hot isn't going to build confidence.
Yeah, you come in hot, people start backing up right away. And then you got to dig them out of a hole before you can ever have a conversation. So, so this literally is, patience is a strategic behavior.
Yes.
Patience is a strategic behavior because it creates executable speed. Stephen Covey Jr. wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. So going back up, leaders who panic break trust. When trust breaks down, everything stops to a crawl, just right down. So strategic patience creates executional speed.
Yep. And then stability during the dip compounds long-term. I started to say it like William Shatner. Bones. Stability during the dip compounds long-term results. Look, we've talked a little bit about that, about one of the things about having your mindset, the value of your how you show up, your influence, your vibrational state, your stability during that dip, because dips are going to occur. You're going to get unanticipated results. The intention is to minimize those.
Yep. That's the definition of elegance. Yeah. Minimal to no unintended consequences. Which kind of goes into most transformations, most large-scale change efforts fail because the ideas weren't bad. The ideas were probably pretty solid, but premature abandonment. We didn't give it time to actually gestate and birth. That gestational period is going to be really kind of variable. I live out here on 11 acres in the country, and when we plant seeds, once we planted it, I'm not going to stand over the seed. Grow, damn it! Where's the sprout? I don't see the sprout yet. What's going on here? That's a bad seed. What's wrong with that seed? I don't do that. It's kind of like, just give it water, give it fertilizer, let it sort itself out. Oh, that's right. There's the radish.
Exactly. That sprout comes up out of the ground and you slap it, see what happens. All right.
Closing it up here. We're running out of time.
We are, by golly. We will wait to mature. We'll go quick. Mature leadership isn't proven or necessarily required during momentum. Remember, that's so important. As a leader, you are with the rest of your team. You don't know all of the details. Let's define mature leadership. It's not being immature as a leader. Mature leadership is knowing all the details. We tend to think of it that way. That is not required. You don't need that. It's not proven. What you need is the fact that you're willing to accept the change, the challenge, and be steadfast.
Yep. And yeah, your leadership, the need for it will be revealed when when that dip, progress slows down, and now you step in, leading with clarity about for the sake of what.
Yeah.
Let's look at what's working, what's not working. Not did somebody do something right or wrong? That's not the question. What's working or not working in service of this worthy ideal that we said we wanted to have.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the last two, but I'll do this one. You do the last one. But if progress feels uncomfortable, you're in the right place.
You're in the right place. Yeah.
It's good. You're in the right place. You want to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So ultimately, this is not about avoiding the dip. The dip is part of the path. I mean, it's built into the process.
Yeah.
Any change is going to come up with an immediate dip in performance. Guaranteed. That's just the nature of change process. So you don't manage change as much as you lead people through the dip that change involves. You lead them through the dip, and that leading process has to do with clarity about for the sake of what are we doing this, and getting people from an ownership perspective to co-create the next step so that they can coordinate their movement in pursuit of that worthy ideal. That's what we're looking to do as leaders.
Nice wrapper-upper.
So that is what we're looking at here, and that actually brings us to the conclusion of This Power of You. Da-da-da. Thanks for listening, folks.
Thank you for being
As
here.
always, feel free to reach out to either Doland or myself, or both of us, with any questions or comments that you might have about this. This is appearing on all of our socials, so you will have, obviously ways to get a hold of us.
Yep. And if you
Look
did
forward
grab
to
screen
it.
grabs, let us know. We'll send it to you. There you go.
Absolutely. Take care, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dr. Bartlett.
Okay, that pause just was enough for us to actually go to something right now. Those of you that are watching live, we want to bring this one up real quick.
Yeah.
This coming Thursday, February 29th at 12 p.m. Pacific, Dolan and I are doing a live experience. We call it the Soul of Business Experience. Every organization, every business has a soul. Every human being has a soul. And I don't mean this from a religious perspective. It's that creative force that is looking to be expressed. So as a human, I'm unique. I've got a creative force that is uniquely trying to express what I know and believe and can actually leverage and activate on. That will be uniquely my gift to the world. Businesses are the same thing. They have a soul that looks for ways to get expressed. So that's what you're looking to create here, is that kind of a experience. So the Soul of Business Experience, February 29th at 12 p.m. Pacific. That's what we're wanting to put in place here. And you can just show up at noon on those days at either of our social platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're going to be everywhere. Where are you guys at? We're everywhere. Or you can register and get kind of a front seat participation place by going to this URL or scan this QR code. And it'll take you directly to a registration page. Registration is not obligatory at all. We would recommend it, however. And I say it's not obligatory. This will be done on a live basis on all of these platforms. So, you can just drop in and watch it. Yeah. Encourage comments and whatnot when you're there. So that's what we're looking at with this. Comments, questions?
Perfect. Awesome.
There we go.
Come join us. 60 minutes. I think you will take away things that will help you tremendously. So that's always our intention. Come join us.
So that's what we're doing next Thursday. We're not going to do a power of you. We're going to do the solo business experience instead. So we'll see you, those of you that are used to showing up at noon on Tuesday or on Thursdays. This is what you're going to get.
Bring a lunch.
Bring a lunch. Okay, we're out of here.
All right, Dr. Bartlett.
Dr. White, thank you, buddy.
So much fun.